something on the screen now anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got the camera going, so no more nose picking. Saw a story, was it yesterday? It was about why we can't stop touching our faces. And why we should.
That works. When the time comes. Call to order the Redevelopment Commission meeting of March 5th, 2020. It is now 6 o'clock. Thank you everybody for attending. We do need to get our new members sworn in if we could, please.
You guys all want to stand up? Please. We've already sworn you in, Mr.
Yes, I will get out of the way.
All right, and I'm just gonna have this present in front of you since you guys can't reach across. I state your name.
I, Brian Taylor,
Will support the Constitution of the United States
will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Indiana,
and the state of Indiana,
and I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
honestly, and impartially
honestly, and impartially
fulfill the duties of the Mooresville Redevelopment Commission
fulfill the duties of the Mooresville Redevelopment Commission
to best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you. Welcome to the Mooresville Redevelopment Commission.
Thank you all for serving this great community. It is, now that we got you roped in, it is the only unpaid position in the government, so congrats on that. Next item on the agenda is the election of vice president and secretary. I will open up for nominations for both vice president and secretary. Do I have any nominations from the floor for vice president? Don't jump at once.
Virginia, would you accept the nomination for vice president?
I would do that. Yes.
I would nominate Virginia.
In the form of a motion, Commissioner Culp has nominated Virginia Perry to be vice president. Is there a second? There is a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay? No nays. Motion passes. Secretary. Do I have a nomination from the floor for secretary?
I motion Brian Culp be secretary.
There is a motion from the floor for Brian Culp to be secretary.
I'll second.
There is a second. Any other nominations? Any opposed? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have our full slate for 2020. Thank you all again for stepping up once again.
Thank you, fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Yes.
Next item on the agenda, I will give kind of a brief overview. Chelsea Manns, for the public's awareness, could not make it tonight. She has an illness in the family. We set up the first meeting to be a little bit more informative for the public and our new commissioners. So tonight will be kind of a brief overview of projects, and kicking us off is our attorney Storwald and Barnes and Thornburg to start with a TIF overview.
Thanks for being here tonight, and I want to introduce Tom Pittman, also my colleague in Barnes Thornburg. We handle all of your redevelopment work. We wanted to give you a presentation. We give you the handbooks. The handbooks are very detailed and provide a lot of great information, if I'm allowed to say that as the author. But we want to give the presentation as well, get some of the highlights, and for you guys to have the opportunity to ask any questions on all the mechanics. This is a very nuanced and technical area, so we just wanted to make sure that we got everybody started off on the same page. And jump in here with any comments or questions that you guys have. I hope I just don't speak for the next 15 minutes all by myself. So we're going to start off just like what is TIF. So you probably hear it a lot. You're probably wondering what it is and how we get it. So once you lay an allocation area down, which we'll get into, but it splits the property taxes that are in the area that you designate, and the base assessed value that was there in the past still is distributed by the county auditor like they normally would, but then any increase based after that date goes to the redevelopment commission, and then the redevelopment commission can use those TIF revenues in any of a number of different ways. Tom, always feel free to jump in here and add anything.
One of the ways, and it's so important that you have a handle on this initial concept, that I'd like to try to express it in different ways. Okay, let's suppose you have an area of the town that has never been declared a TIF district. This is just some parcels in the town. Let's suppose that within the territory there is a company, Company A. Now, when Company A, and again, there's no such thing as TIF here yet. When Company A gets taxed, it pays its taxes twice a year, like everybody else, right? Like your May and November tax. When that tax gets paid, it gets paid to the county officials, and the county officials effectively take those tax payments and split them up into a pie, okay? On average in Indiana, school corporations get 40% of that pie. The town usually gets between 10 and 20%. The library gets a portion. The county gets a portion. And let's see, county, library, town, and township. And then some places have special taxing districts that also share. Indiana law sometimes allows a certain type of special district. But basically, that's what happens to the two tax payments that this Company A makes. Now, let's suppose time passes. You create this area as a so-called TIF district. Now, let's suppose that a couple of years pass, and a new company comes in and invests $1 million in a building. Okay, now what happens? And here's the distinction that's critical. When A pays its taxes in that future time, after the TIF district and after the companies come in, the taxes it pays continue to go to these units as if there were no TIF district. But the what's called incremental assessed value, increment being a fancy word for increase, the construction of this project here increased the assessed value within that area, right? Company A's taxes flow to that pre-existing pie, but the taxes that Company B pays on the additional assessed value they brought about by constructing this building do not go to those underlying taxing units. They are not shared among the pie. They are allocated to this board to be used in a way that it is in or benefits this area that got designated. So that's the distinction. Tax increment, the incremental assessed value that generates taxes gets allocated to this body. They do not go to the pie chart recipients. So you have what's called a base, and the base is the value that was there before you created the TIF district. That's your company A. They're your base. On this chart, you see the base assessed value at the bottom of the bucket. That's this. The incremental assessed value is this building. Now, it's not the land, because they'll pay taxes on the land, but that land was already there, right? So the taxes that are allocable to the value of the land are part of the base and get treated the way pre-existing assessment is treated. Does everybody have a pretty good handle on that? So when you get your TIF dollars, what you're getting is tax dollars that arise in connection with payments of taxes by assessed value that got created after this area was created as a TIF district, okay?
Yeah, here's another slide showing that similar, the buckets over here on the bottom. So this is sort of over time. So you see that base, even after you create the TIF district on that first green arrow on the bottom, that's when the AV starts going up and those property taxes go back to the commission. The base still stays with the overlapping, and then when the TIF district is terminated, then all that assessed value gets put back into what is now the base. Does this slide help at all, or Dr. Moore?
So, yeah, and under Tom's scenario, if Company B never came in, but Company A improved or expanded, their
Yes.
improvements and expansion would count.
Their new value
Correct.
would also be captured
Right.
and would generate income.
And then the personal property is up to the local?
Personal property, some types of personal property can be captured. The law specifies the conditions that you have. It has to be like manufacturing. There are certain categories that you can, if you make an election to do so, capture, and there are certain categories that you cannot. You cannot capture, do you recall
I mean, it has to be industrial
Industrial.
or,
manufacturing?
can't be just like commercial
It
retail.
can't be commercial or retail, right, that you cannot choose to capture. The manufacturing and industrial, you can choose to capture. And for example, some types of developments are very personal property intensive, right? A lot of companies, all of their they have the cheap shell building and everything, all the actions in the equipment. When that happens, it's often the case that a redevelopment commission will make the election to TIF the personal property, if you will. It's less common, it's not the norm to do that. And it really does tend to happen in the types of developments that are equipment heavy. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
This kind of builds a little bit off of the, what Tom was drawing, but I wanted to illustrate a different point here. So this is probably where people get confused the most off of anything when we talk about TIF districts and all the procedural technical issues. And we've tailored this presentation to pretty much what Mooresville has. There are such things as areas needing redevelopment and economic development areas. But Mooresville only has an economic development area, so we've tried to carve out a lot of the stuff that's not relevant right now to Mooresville to make this as digestible as possible, otherwise we'd be here all all night. So the important distinction here is an economic development area versus an allocation area. The economic development area is, the easiest way I was thinking about is where you can spend your TIF. And an allocation area is where you actually collect the TIF. So when you hear a TIF district, that's really what they're referring to is an allocation area. Now you can have as many allocation areas as you want inside an economic development area. You don't have to have just one, but you can't have an allocation area without an economic development area. Does that make sense? You have to, they're squares, they are concentric circles, like it has to be inside. So you can't have the allocation area half in, half out. It's got to be 100% in. There are a lot of other rules that that sort of apply that we'll link to those if they ever come up. But the idea is we're just trying to get the basics down all tonight for you guys. So it's where you can spend TIF versus where you collect it. So in Mooresville, you have the consolidated Mooresville Economic Development Area, which is quite large. So that is where you can spend any of the TIF. And then you actually have two allocation areas. You have the consolidated Mooresville Economic Development Allocation Area, often referred to here as the big TIF, that's been around for a while. And then you have the 2019 allocation area, which is on the very south end of town, where we bought where the Shell building is going up and where we annexed that area in at the end of 2018. So that is its own separate allocation area.
Can I
Yeah.
comment? You know, you might ask, well, why wouldn't you just always have them kind of be the same, right? And here's the reason, okay? If you think about it, the parcels that are part of the allocation area, that is those where you're going to capture incremental assessed value, that's work for the auditor's office. They don't want an endless number of parcels to have to take measurements on every year. They want you to be economical in where you draw those lines. And so there's that aspect of it. You can see, though, the economic development area where you can spend the money is not an administrative burden to the auditor. They don't care the auditor's office doesn't care where you spend the money. It doesn't affect their workload. But they do care how many parcels you pick out for them to have to do work on constantly. So you try to be conservative in selecting your parcels that have to have these TIF measurements every year.
And we get into very complex financing and bonding issues. I mean, TIF created from one allocation area might be pledged to repayment of bonds. So you might want to issue another set of bonds, but you don't have to deal with the TIF from another area, so you create a separate area. New companies coming in, you just want to give them the benefit of their property taxes versus, if they don't build what they say, and then you have the allocation area too big, and they can benefit from development from other places. So there can be a laundry list of considerations. Does everybody kind of understand the difference between the two?
I think that one of, probably, in my mind, the key takeaway from that is that when somebody says TIF district, they're talking about the collection of parcels that are generating the TIF. You might hear that called an allocation area. You might hear it called a TIF district. They're exactly the same thing. They're just two terms for the same thing.
So just if you're wondering, why you're here and how you got here, so Shane appointed 3 of you, and then the town council as a whole appointed the other And Dr. Moore here, you're representing the schools. You're not on the school board, are you, correct?
No, sir.
Right.
Just
So they,
appointed representative.
yes, so they can either nominate somebody that is on the school board or somebody that the school board nominates. And Dr. Moore is your non-voting school board member. So he is effectively a member for all purposes except for voting. So he can attend every meeting, he can attend every executive session, provide his input, ask questions, talk, he can do everything. Just when it comes down to voting, it's the five of you that they decide if someone passes or not.
Adam, before we move on to more administrative stuff, may I
Yeah.
raise a couple of other points? Because I think that there are a couple of other concepts that I always like to talk about that I think are more, that are sort of fundamental to your understanding of chips. And, you know, you hear a lot of terms bandied about, but people aren't always clear as to even what they're saying. You know, you might hear a term 1,000 times, if nobody ever explains it, it doesn't do much good. I want to talk about a little bit about the tax system generally in Indiana, okay? You have a concept called assessed value. Assessed value is basically the dollar value assigned to a parcel by the taxing officials. You have your assessed value, you have gross assessed value, which is defined as the value that the assessing officials place on the property, less deductions and exemptions. That's gross assessed value. And then you have net assessed value, which is the value that the assessing officials place on the property. And they do it annually, they adjust it annually. Less deductions, exemptions, and credits. So when, at the end of the day, the assessed value figure that's going to really matter is the net assessed value. That's what a tax rate is going to be applied to. So within the town of Mooresville, every single piece of property gets assigned a value by the assessing officials. It used to be that every 4 or so years, it was irregular, there would be what was called a reassessment. And the assessing officials were required to come in and reevaluate the value assigned to your property. So it could go up or down between reassessment periods. The law changed, I don't remember how many years ago, to a concept called trending. Trending is where each year in between reassessment years, there's still reassessment years. Trending is a process where each year the assessing officials will make a redetermination of the assessed value of your property. And the way they do that is by, there are designated areas, neighborhoods I think they're called, where a review is made of how much properties sold for in the area. And that might not be very many properties, and they might have to go to a larger area, but they look at sales data to come up with a formula that gets assigned to all of the properties as an adjustment each year. That's called trending. Now, so that's how the assessed value system works. Now, it used to not matter that much how much everybody wants the lowest assessment, and it has not historically, and I don't think it still is, difficult to make a challenge of the assessed value of your property. It's done all the time, and my experience is that For a time, it was just a rubber stamp. If you asked them for a reduction, they'd give you a little bit just to get you to shut up, you know? So I think that still happens, but it matters more now. I want to talk a little bit about why. So you've got assessed value, and then that'll be multiplied by a tax rate, which I'll come back to. But then there is a levy. A levy just means the amount of taxes being raised for each fund. Let's talk about the general fund of the town of Mooresville, okay? Each year, and that's your principal fund, each year, the state of Indiana will tell your clerk treasurer to the penny how much she or he is going to be able to raise for that general fund. That amount is recalculated each year as follows. You get for paid 2020 taxes, the same amount, the general fund will get the same amount as it got for 2019 with an upward adjustment that will range generally between 3 and 6%. The state tells you what that percentage is each year. That percentage is calculated based on a review by the state officials of the average growth of personal income, not including foreign income, in Indiana for the last 6 years. Translation, how much are wages going up, okay, basically, on average. It's capped at 6, the general fund can't get more than 6. In recent years, it's been, like this year, I think it's 3.5%. It was 4% the year before. So that general fund will get, if I'm correct, it's 3.5%. They will get 100% plus 3.5% of what they got the prior year. They're going to get that amount no matter how much assessed value you have in the town, and no matter what your tax rate is. Because if the assessed value goes up, but this levy is fixed, you can see that just drives the rate down mathematically, right? X times y equals z. If z is fixed, if x goes up, y has to go down. So does everybody agree with that? Okay. Now, the other nuts and bolts come, and I would tell you that most funds in Indiana are levy limited funds. That is, the amount that can be raised for the fund is absolutely fixed with a ceiling, no matter what. Now, I want to talk a little bit, the second fundamental point that I think is important for people to understand is this term you hear, tax caps. Let's talk about what tax caps are. It used to be the case that to get to her maximum levy, clerk treasurer didn't care what the assessed value was because she'd just plug in this figure to get the math to work, right? Who cares what it is? I mean, you want your tax rates low, it's a policy matter, but at the end of the day, that general fund wouldn't suffer as a result of reductions in assessed value, nor would it benefit from increases in assessed value. Now let's talk about what tax caps did. And this is a term that you probably heard, and some of you know exactly what it is, and others of you have heard of it but don't necessarily know what it is. And I think it's a fundamental concept worth talking about for a minute. Here's the idea. All of the taxable property in the state under the constitutional tax caps is divided into 3 classes of property. All taxable property is in one of these classes. Let me tell you what the classes are. you've got what's called homestead property. Homestead property is your home, but if you own more than one, it's the one you live in, okay? If you own two, only the one you live in is a homestead. The other is classified as rented property. Homestead property has a tax cap of 1%, and I'll come back to exactly what that implies. That is categorized as 1% cap property. 2% cap property includes residential rental property, long-term health care property, and certain types of farm property. That's 2% cap property. The last category is 3% property. 3% property is basically commercial and business property. Now, what do those percentages mean? What does 1%, 2%, 3% mean? Okay, now let's back up to the general fund for a minute. Okay, the clerk treasurer is going to calculate the fund for her general fund. That's going to be a tax that's imposed on all property in the town limits. But think about it. A given property in the town of Mooresville is going to be taxed by the town, by the county, by the school corporation, by the library, by the township. All of those taxing entities independently are going to be working up their formulas. So when your clerk treasurer works up her tax rate based on her maximum levy and her assessed value, she's going to come up with a tax rate. But she doesn't know what tax rates the other taxing jurisdictions are coming up with. And those get combined, right? That pie is a combination of all of those creating a combined rate. Tax caps, what does it do? It tells you that under 1% property, your homestead property, if all of those rates that get combined total to more than 1%, you don't have to pay it. So if you have $100,000 and it's based on gross assessed value, if your house has a gross assessed value of $100,000 and all of these combined rates were going to cause your tax bill to be $1,500, well, that's 1.5%, right? That's not 1%. So when you get your tax bill, it shows this $1,500 and then it slices 500 of it off, and you have a $1,000 tax bill. If the tax bill on your commercial property was going to be $3,500, that 500 gets slashed off. Now, what does that do? What it does is it causes a shortfall in these local funds, right? It's not as if the state makes up that loss. They don't. Those taxing units share that loss equally. So here's what happens. If you have this assessed value fixed and your tax rate post-tax tax is effectively fixed, or if this is fixed and this is fixed, this could be less than you planned for it to be. That's what the concept of tax cap losses is, and this is where the friction comes about with taxing units, because they say, well, if I can't fix this tax rate and I can't, what do I do to get this levy? Well, the only other place to go is the assessed value. So what they say is, well, you know all that assessed value you're capturing as tip? Let go of it so that we can put it into our formula and rebuild to eliminate those losses, right? If you could increase that assessed value, if this is fixed You could increase this if you could find a way to do it, right? So the argument that arises is that school corporations will say, well, if the TIF district weren't capturing the assessed value, then we'd have more assessed value and we could fill in any shortfalls mathematically as a result of having more assessed value. The flaw in that reasoning is that it's usually the case that the development that caused the increased assessed values would never have happened without the creation of a TIF district that incentivized the creation of the assessed value. You've got a company that says, I'll come to town and I'll build my factory B, but I'm not doing it unless you give me a TIF incentive. So it is true that if you just shut down an existing TIF district, you could free up assessed value. But that's not the same thing as saying that a TIF district caused those shortfalls. The analogy I use is that, you have like countries like Canada that are rich, and you've got countries like, Cambodia that are poor, and Canada could send a huge check over to Cambodia and could solve their problem, but that doesn't mean that Cambodia is poor because Canada is rich. So could you remedy the problem? You could, but even if you did, it wouldn't mean you caused it. So anyway, thanks for letting me talk too long, but I wanted you to have an understanding of tax caps, and I wanted you to have an understanding of the budget process, because those are fundamental to your understanding of the debate that goes on. Sorry, I just.
Oh, yeah, but I would say you can't pass it through, though you have bonds outstanding and you have other
Right.
obligations. So,
If you borrow against it, right, you can.
yeah, so you exactly. And just Mooresville doesn't have any cap or circuit breaker losses, do they? So Mooresville's not at the max.
Okay.
So
But you'll hear debates among your other colleagues in other places in the state where it's a big issue.
right, so if you release the increased assessed value, then it's under the first scenario that Tom was describing, where rates then just go down, but all the other units funds stay the same.
Okay, back to your procedures.
That was far more of the interesting stuff. I'm left with
Left him with the
the
board.
residency requirement and age requirement. So these are continuing requirements, not just to be appointed, but also to serve. So you must be a resident of Mooresville. So if you move out of Mooresville, you are de facto off the commission. If you can figure out a way to become less than 18 years of age, let me know. We can make a lot of money. So I mean that's really your chance. Or I mean you can. There's not really the too lucrative office prohibition, right? You can't be the mayor and the town council president, and you can't do two lucrative offices. So that's generally not a problem here. And you don't have a salary. If you did, then that could be an issue. But at Mooresville, we don't provide a salary. I shouldn't say we, but conflicts of interest. So this is something that comes up from time to time. We should always be aware of. This is the lawyer hat that I get to wear on. You know, if we're looking at buying property and your sister owns it, you gotta let us know. Immediately. Or if you're looking to sell property and your sister comes to try to buy it, I'm not picking on your sister. I don't know if you have your wife, brother, child, parent. If they're involved, then we need to recuse you and make sure you're not like having any votes. I mean, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's always good to know up front within So you're appointed for 1-year terms, but you effectively stay on until you are replaced. Otherwise, they didn't make appointments, so you just be out of the board. And then, as I said earlier, removal of members, I mean, that's just whoever discretion that appointed you, town council as a whole, or Shane as the town, or whoever the town council president is, can make that call. So our meetings, my understanding is at some point in the past, there was a requirement they met like on the January 1.
That hasn't been that very many years, and I think finally they just gave up because nobody was doing it anywhere, so why bother to require it?
You had a person that can come in on the national holiday as well. But now you're no longer required to meet on January 1. And they qualify that your first meeting can't be on a weekend or holiday. And then our other meetings, so we can, in the past, we've had an annual, or not annual meeting, a monthly meeting on the first Thursday at 6 p.m. That can be changed. We can have different regular meetings, and then of course we can call special meetings, which require at least 48 hours notice, open door law notice. Chelsea and I usually will handle that requirement. Or we let the newspaper know and post it on the town bulletin board and on the front door, excuse me. And of course, email and call all of you to let you know that there's a meeting.
And I think, Adam, that you are required to meet within the first 30 days of each year. But nothing happens if you don't. You're just supposed to.
There's a lot of supposed to rules. Supposed to eat my vegetables at night. Just never seem to get to them. Clerk treasurer, so they also serve as the treasurer of the commission, so they handle all the payments. You're good with that?
I'm good.
Okay. Oh, notice the public hearings, yeah, we just kind of talked about that, so, I don't want you thinking that all of a sudden you're gonna get a call from Chelsea like at 7 o'clock at night being like, hey, 2 days you gotta be at this meeting. Now, as I say that, it's probably gonna happen like next week, but, I don't know if we've really ever called a special meeting in the last 2 years or so. But if we do, it's usually well known in advance. We have to call it for either certain reading requirements or public hearing requirements. Quorum requirement, there are 5 of you, 3 of you make a quorum, so we have to have on any official action, 3 votes. 3 out of 5. So that also happens, if only 3 of you are here. One of you can't make it for a meeting, there's 4 people here, still need 3 votes. If 3 people are here, we can still have a meeting, but you still gotta have 3, you can't just have 2 out of 3 voting. So now we kind of get into some of the duties and then some of the responsibilities on some following slides. I mean, you can read all of these, but there are annual reporting requirements, that there's some in April, I think there's some in June and August. Is that right, Tom? There's one in June 15th.
There's one in June 15th, there's one in April, there's one in August.
And there's an annual presentation that we have to give that we usually will do at our May meeting. Don't worry, you're not gonna have to remember all of this. We handle the presentation of those meetings, make sure they're on the agenda, we work with Chelsea on that, getting all the information ready. So it's not like you're gonna have to go home and do the homework and figure out these answers tonight. There's a new law where we have the annual, oh wait, this one's the,
That's the reason.
oh, that's, well, that was the presentation, I was thinking of,
Yeah, the June 15th, pass through.
yeah, so we look at our proposed expenditures, we look at our expected TIF collection, and we have to make a determination on, what we're gonna, if we're gonna collect way too much TIF or not. Basically, and then we let the town council know our decision, and then if it's over 200%, they have to bless that. Our annual presentation, so we usually do this roughly around the same time, because Baker Tilly's, our accountants, they come in, they will give the presentation on provide all of these numbers. And we do it because they're also going to be here at the same time. So this meeting, we invite all the other tax unions, let them know of our expected TIF revenues, our plans, and the impact of our plans on those tax unions. I don't want to breeze through all these, but is there any, I know we got a lot of other people here giving presentations and things tonight, but go ahead. Here you guys have any questions, please shout them out or let me know. I'm happy to answer. We get paid by the syllable, so please keep talking.
Come down.
So your general powers, I mean, you have the ability to acquire property, dispose of property, clear, prepare it for redevelopment. Some of the classic cases are, an area that is in a floodplain and it has poor infrastructure and needs some environmental remediation. You go in, you clean it up, you prepare it for, business development and growth. Where a developer might come in and be like, well, that's too much for us to handle by itself, and that gap is sort of what the redevelopment commission is there for, to help fill. Required approval, so there's a lot that's within your basic discretion on projects and expenditures. So, but up to a certain amount, you have to get approval from the town council. I think, is it 5 million? Yeah, so over 5 million. So if there's a project that's going to cost more than that, then we have to get explicit approval from the town council. But we don't have to get approval for everything that comes up underneath that.
So basically, a big part of what you guys will do is determine what you think the wisest use of the TIF money is. And as Adam said, there's a lot of discretion in that. The classic use, of course, is public infrastructure, sewer, water, roads. But the permissible uses go well beyond that. So you'll be called upon to determine how you want the money to be spent. You'll also play the principal role in determining whether a particular development proposal, in your judgment, warrants an incentive, and if so, how much of an incentive, to find out what the company's willing to do for the town in terms of investment, jobs, everything that flows from that. So you guys will be the decision makers, principal decision makers. If you do the borrowing, that goes before the town council, but you're in principally the driver's seat. So you can see that this body plays a very critical role in the successful path that the town will take over time. You have a lot of resources at your disposal that your constituents need you to exercise your best judgment on. If a project isn't desirable to you, you need to say no to incentives. But you're where that buck stops, really. So I would emphasize that's kind of the judgment calls that you're going to be called upon to make over time.
See, developers are not shy about asking for the moon and stars.
Nor are we shy of telling them to get lost if you want us to. If you want us to.
So some permissible uses of TIF, so this sort of goes hand in hand with your powers and your responsibilities. But there are some things that are not quite so evident. I mean, you spend TIF on those redevelopment projects that we kind of talked about that sort of serve or benefit the allocation area and inside that economic development area that we discussed earlier. You can use it to reimburse some of the town's expenditures, to pay debt on bonds. It could have been financed with using TIF that's physically connected to the area. That gets into like economic development bonds and some other complicated sort of structures. Commissions, we can also give up to 15% of our TIF to educational or work or retraining programs. Tom, anything adding here? Have we ever determined what an eligible efficiency project is, other than seemingly everything?
You know, it's one of those hidden little gems that you don't see used very often. It sounds very specific, but it isn't. It's just sort of where, like if the town and the county wanted to team up for a project, you'd have powers that were expanded over what you have if you were just acting as the town. I've never actually, I've informed people of it being an option. I doubt if it's used very often. We would know it.
So it's useful to the consolidation of local government services, so that's.
Right. And it boils down to a joint project between the town and the county, and they just let you do just anything if you do that. But again, it's not used, and people don't really even know exactly.
I mean, technically, you guys are the department of the town, so it's, that kind of gets lost a lot, but you are a department of the town, and you could have employees like other departments, but you couldn't use any TIF to pay for any of those employees. You would have to use other funds, you'd have to levy a property tax, sort of like the town does to pay, their employees. You guys don't have any employees. We're legal services, accounting services, Chelsea as a consultant we're all not employees of the town. So you can use TIF to pay our fees, Chelsea's, and Baker Tilly's. Yes, down on the last point. Depreciable personal property, this, we kind of talked about this earlier. Most only collect TIF on real property, the buildings, brick and mortar. And that is your standard. If you create an allocation area, you have to go through an extra step and specifically designate a taxpayer to collect their personal property taxes. Right now, you guys do not collect any personal property taxes, or TIF any personal property. There are limits on the allocation area. You guys actually have, I think, some legacy areas that were created before 1995. Depending on when the allocation area was created is when the clock starts on when it expires. So the big TIF that Mooresville currently has will not continue on forever.
Unless the law changes.
Yes. We don't levy anything for assessments to count against the maximum levy, so we didn't have any problem paying our debt, but. The residential property, so right now there are some TIF that you guys have that's it was created before 1995. But anything created now, we do not capture anything on houses, so it's all commercial and development, industrial, of things of that nature.
And more specific, you're not allowed legally, except in rare, very old TIF districts. For many years, it's been the law that, for example, in my chart, if somebody built a home in that TIF district, it would be invisible in terms of their taxes that go to the underlying units. They wouldn't be TIF'd. So,
Yeah, for my, latest 1997, where it's needing redevelopment.
and the thinking on that is that the school corporations made the point that, you know, if there are houses, there might be little children running around those houses who have to be educated. And so it would be good for that to generate new assessed value for that the schools would have access to.
And, well, it's not explicitly stated, I mean, one thing that the redevelopment commission has that really no other governmental unit has is the ability to create your budget from your work. Right, where the town, like, oh, we need tax revenues, we tax, we collect. Here, you can incentivize commercial development and then recoup that benefit. So the better you are at incentivizing it, the more you can gain. It's kind of not what normal tax or normal governmental function, in that you need more money, you just raise taxes. Here, if you do a poor job of it, of bringing in commercial development, then you don't collect any tip. Does that make sense? And there's we get the questions all the time when we say no residential, and they're like, what about duplexes? What about apartments? What about 4-bedroom condo or 4-unit condos that are operated as a co-op? Or it gets complicated to have to draw those lines at some places, but I don't think there's any of those issues coming up soon for us. Financings involving TIF. You know, now we get to the real meat of our presentation. That all before was just some preamble.
He didn't think much of my speech.
We can talk about this forever, and I can let you guys read this. The booklets that you guys all have exhaustive. The authors did a fantastic job laying it all out. But there are many different methods you guys have of financing it. It is probably the most versatile use or versatile dollar that any governmental unit has. It's not as near as restrictive as other funds of governments where they get it, they have to use it. I mean, sewer, you gotta improve the sewer. You can't not do sewer improvements. So you can do bonds or sales. These always have to be approved by the town council. You can pledge TIF to bonds issued by the town council. Bonds can be just payable just from TIF, can be payable from TIF and any other taxing revenue you can think of. It can be payable from TIF and then a backup of another source. You can do a backup of levying property taxes. You can do local income tax with a backup of TIF with a backup of property. I mean, you can come up with endless scenarios of tiered, however you want to repay bonds. Leases also come into play. You guys hear about lease finance or building corporations, possibly, or redevelopment authority. So there's a 2% debt limit when you levy a property tax, you're capped at the 2%. Lease financing helps you get around that because it's not a debt, it's a lease. And by property taxes, TIF is not a property tax.
But these are sorts of things that some of these ideas, you guys certainly aren't expected to get into the weeds on all that. I mean, these are technical legal rules. You tell Chelsea and Adam and Baker Tilly what your goal is, and they'll figure out the legal, structure for you. You don't really have to have much of a handle on that. You just have to know what your goal is. So.
I mean, refundings, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Rates go down, kind of mentioned earlier, you have the big tip that has pledges. Bondholders, right, if you're buying bond, you want to know that you're not going to dilute the repayment source. So you have qualified a certain test that you're bringing in enough revenue to issue additional bonds off of that allocation area. Right, if you're not paying your current bonds, the bondholders don't want you adding new bonds. And here we kind of just get more into the risk. I'm going to keep going as we're going a little longer. The housing kit, this has been something that's new that's kind of come up. Tom, you want to tell them about this and any of the law changes on that?
Yes, basically, it is going to allow you, if what you want to do is identify like a housing neighborhood where you want to invest some TIF, the laws there are new laws on the books that allow a TIF program for purposes of improving a neighborhood. And that's kind of new. And you'll hear more about it. It's called Single Family Residential TIF. Adam and I have put out a paper on it as soon as the legislature ends because there are some significant changes. But it's just another tool that you have if there are some, for example, maybe what's called a backfill project where there's one, house or something or building where if a house were put there, it'd really improve things. I don't know that that's so true here, but there are especially some urban cities where there's just one really nasty property that's just pulling everything down, that if a couple houses could be put there, it would just change the whole complexion. So there are a lot of places, and Adam and I work all over Indiana, there are a lot of places that are poised to do this. I just don't think Mooresville has that type of issue.
Well, like I was kind of saying earlier before, the TIF is captured on like commercial and industrial and business. You kind of use it to generate more commercial, industrial business. Problem is some places have so much of that but nowhere to live nearby. So they're kind of creating this housing TIF to generate TIF from housing to pour back into housing. So it's kind of tied to how you're generating it and how you're going to spend it. There are current rules that are being massively overhauled, at least being discussed in the legislature now. But if that is something of interest at some point, then we'll definitely let you know how the rules change out, and if that's of interest, we can dive into that much more detail.
We put out, Adam and I put out, anytime there's a significant change in the law, we do quickly do a summary that will be circulated to you guys. So we kind of do that just as a, non-billable service to our market to help keep you up to speed on recent developments.
And as you can tell, we're on the last slide. Like, how exciting is that? Yeah, I just got to take the quiz now on everything that we've discussed. Real quick, so there are, just so you know, you can have more sources of revenue than just TIF. Local income tax,
If the town gives it to you.
tax abatement contributions, you can be creative. You guys can impose property taxes.
But if you do, it counts against the unit's rate, so it's almost never done. So it's technically possible.
Right, but really, you guys just have TIF here currently. We are done. Please not throw anything happening back there.
Well, they did at least today.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for your attention.
Yes.
Dr. Moore.
Dr. Moore.
Thank you. new members, please don't be scared by, by what, this is all good stuff. And what I'd suggest, Adam, is that, you've given them a lot of material and stuff, and I'd suggest at our next meeting, that you guys, as you look at stuff and encounter questions, write them down and let's get answers to our questions so we operate smoother as we go through. I think that'd be a good idea, because I know you're gonna have some as you look this stuff over. And, you know, we've got a 19-item agenda tonight, we're on item 3, so I don't wanna take up a lot of time, but I do have one more question, Tom. How is it that some redevelopment commissions have allowed flow-throughs to the taxing units?
Annually, a determination is required by law to be made. You can't do it if it's going to cause your next year's revenues to fall below what you need to pay debt. But you can to the extent it won't. So a decision has to be made by this body as to whether to let go for the next year, and it's a year-by-year thing, to let go of some of the assessed value to pass it through. It's an annual determination that this body has the duty to make.
So if a redevelopment commission is doing well and they have a balance, they can annually make a decision to allow a flow-through?
Yeah, they're not allowing the dollars to flow through, they're allowing the assessed value to flow through.
Which amounts to dollars when it happens.
Most of the funds are levy limited, so that may or may not result in new dollars for the taxing units. It might.
Yeah.
But if you don't have tax caps, it probably won't benefit the taxing units, because if they're already able to get their full allowance, then passing through won't give them any money. It'll cost you a lot of money. It will have the residual benefit of lowering rates, tax rates, but it won't generate more dollars.
And passing through can't go to one taxing unit, it has to
It
be
cannot.
all taxing
It has
units.
to be all or none. Now, as Adam said, this body has the legal ability each year to determine whether they want to give up to 15% of their TIF collections to an educational institution. That can be the school corporation, it can be a university, it can be anything that's really an educational entity. So in that sense, that can be better than a pass-through, because if a school is already getting its maximum levy dollars, this actually generates more cash for them in a way that passing through assessed value wouldn't.
Good.
Right?
So there's thank you. That's what I want, thank you.
Actually,
And a lot of places do, more and more places.
Yeah, I'm aware that some of them do. We've never done that here.
More and more.
We were told here it was illegal to do that, and I knew better because I knew several places were doing that.
well, we never said it was illegal.
You didn't, no,
Okay,
you are correct.
okay.
That's something this body will have, that's the sort of decision that you guys will have to make.
We actually have on the agenda the STEM program for the school.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty, if we could head on down to, believe it or not, agenda item 4. The approval of minutes from January 2nd, 2020. I was the only present member, but I believe we still have to take a vote for this. Am I correct on this?
Is that why they're all the new members, but there's the minutes from the last meeting when the other members were present.
They're still technically supposed to read them, and
Okay.
I agree with you, I don't know how you do that, but I'll go ahead and do it. If they look okay, yeah, I can approve them. Adam, can you explain to them anything in there that they have?
Yeah, I mean, do you guys have any, were you guys able to read them?
Thanks for your attention.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Do you guys have any questions on them?
No.
No.
With that, I will go ahead and make a motion, open for a motion for approval of the minutes from the January 2nd, 2020 meeting. No motion.
So, we have the recording. There's nothing done, or nothing, by not approving the minutes does not disqualify anything that was done.
Right, I believe they can still be posted, and I believe that these minutes will show that the motion failed to approve the minutes.
I'm not allowed to do anything on this, so I can't help you, but I can tell you that Dustin was here and I was here, and the minutes reflect what happened.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I abstained.
And abstentions. We have any abstentions besides Virginia? Or, sorry, Commissioner Perry. Sorry. Thank you so much. Financial report. I believe everybody had received the financial report. I will make a couple notes that the clerk treasurer's financial reports are the actual official reports. The balance on the profit loss statements are not the official. Second point that I will make that as this is kind of an odd that we are starting in March, that the appropriation report is actually from Jan 1 to current. The fund report will state 3/1 to 3/31. So, with those 2 points, I will open up the floor for the approval of tonight's financials. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion the financials be reported, or accepted as reported.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second that.
I have a second. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on, public comment. Anybody from the public like to come up? I know you're dying.
I think I wowed them with our billions.
I was gonna say,
Real quick. I just want to say thanks to Adam and Tom for that presentation. It's very good, it's very informative, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
alrighty, gateway update. There's actually no gateway update. Is that correct, Ed? I don't have anything. In my 50-some notes.
I don't think there is at this time. So I can give you one. There is some gateway bond money left. That money has been pledged or has been worked with on NDOT on certain, I think, road improvements. Or is that the light pole project? I can't remember what.
High Street.
High Street, yeah.
It's the light poles and the sidewalks.
Yes, so they were installing the new sidewalks along High Street, and NDOT was doing that. They were doing part of the project. They were limited in scope, and so we had to replace the entire sidewalk, put it in. That's from that Gateway Bond Fund.
Alrighty. We'll see. I had that under High Street. See? You're making up time now.
Chelsea's far more plugged in and is better at this than I am.
Ditto. Under old business, Mills family lease termination. Adam?
Yeah, so, we wanted to make this, at a public meeting. In the past, there was you're familiar with the Nice Pack development. When we acquired that property, there was a lease that we could terminate at any time that was being farmed by the mills. And as the Nice Pack project was moving on, we didn't want them to plant and then not be able to harvest, so we terminated it, but we wanted to bring it up for ratification at a meeting to put a bow on it. They're not farming it now. My understanding is they didn't plant crops or anything, so it's a legal formality at this point.
So when does the lease terminate? What is the date?
We terminated.
It's already terminated?
Yes.
When was it terminated?
I think at the end of last year.
Last year.
Yeah. So what we're asking for was just a ratification of that termination, to be able to put it in the minutes that it happened.
Any other questions on the request for ratification?
So we'll see a motion and a vote for the ratification of that termination.
I'll make a motion for the ratification of the lease termination for the Mills family lease.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll say.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Merriman and Bethel Road construction, Banning Engineering. Yay. All right, you have 2 hours.
I'm gonna plug in a visual aid real quick.
You're down to an hour and a half.
But you'll appreciate it. Okay, so my name is Mark Butler. I'm with Banning Engineering, project manager on the Merriman and Bethel Road reconstruction or improvement project. Our office is located in Plainfield, about 15 minutes away, and we have the pleasure of serving you as a consultant on this. So the history of the project is the redevelopment commission purchased what was called the Poly property, which is located at the southern end of Mooresville, and it was totaling about 100 acres. Okay, and just to give you an idea of where this is, we're located at the blue dot in the middle. Okay, and the 100 acres is this property right here that is located north of Merriman Road and east of Bethel Road, okay, with Flagstaff subdivision at the top. So the existing conditions are such that Merriman Road is a 2-lane road, Bethel the same, narrow, not designed for anything more than regular vehicular traffic, okay? The occasional truck. Equipment Technologies, which is located at the north and south of this, does run their sprayer equipment around, but that's as big as, they're actually up high, so a car could go underneath them. But anyway, not designed for anything industrial in size, okay? So we were retained to improve Merriman and Bethel Road, okay? To accommodate an industrial or commercial use of this property. Okay, so I'd like to show you a snip of what State Route 67 and Merriman Road, and you can see our design is widening Merriman Road to a more commercial size road. So from the back curb to the other back curb is 40 feet wide, okay? And that's typical to what you'll find in industrial type area, commercial type warehousing even. It's like in Plainfield, for example. So that would allow either two 18-foot lanes or 2 lanes and a two-way left-hand turn if you like, okay? There'll be curb and gutter on both sides and a drainage system installed. As coordinating with NDOT is here at the intersection, the volume of traffic that could be incurred on the property versus what was there before is going to be significantly increased, we believe. And so, being truck traffic, it's only safe to include or extend the right turn, southbound right turn lanes and the northbound left turn lane. So we coordinated with NDOT to make that happen, and they've given us a permit to do so, to widen those as part of the project. As part of that, we approached them to see if they thought that a traffic signal was needed at this location. Currently, right now, NDOT's policy is that they don't want to put a signal in if it's not currently warranted. And obviously nothing is built on that area right now, so it's not currently warranted, okay? However, in the future, when something is built there, then it would definitely be warranted, okay? And so what they agreed to do, and this is common throughout the state, is to put together a traffic signal covenant. Okay, what this says is basically that NDOT has already looked at the traffic generation numbers if something were to be built at that intersection. And once it is built or is even in the process of being built, that they would go ahead and allow the traffic signal to be placed. Now, it's important for you to know that NDOT is not offering money for you guys to build it. They're just saying that they'll allow it to be built, okay? So it would be a signal similar to any other along 67 with strain poles and cable spans for a signal. That's kind of what it would look like, okay? In our opinion, a traffic signal there is beneficial to someone developing in the area because they know that they can have safe access, ingress, egress to their property and eliminate or reduce the number of crashes that could potentially come out with a large semi-trailer crossing many lanes to try to get to the highway, okay? So that's something from a developer standpoint would be a beneficial point to have a traffic signal there. So, though currently not in our project, a traffic signal covenant has been generated, and a signal is not in the scope today, but it could be in the near future as that gets built out, okay? So, Merriman Road crosses the drainage ditch right here, and this crossing is to be reconstructed with a new bridge. That's necessary because the old condition, the old pipes that were there wouldn't handle the load, and so a new bridge is to be installed there. And it would continue all the way to Bethel Road. Okay, Bethel Road was originally planned to be widened similar to Merriman Road. However, as part of the room that we needed to widen Bethel Road to do so was not available. The right-of-way was not available through lots of things that we did to try to incentivize purchasing the right-of-way. The landowner did not want to allow us to purchase it, and so currently the scope is to just mill and overlay the roadway. So the footprint of the road is going to remain the same for right now. Okay, it's going to get a new surface, but it's going to look the same as it does today, if that makes sense, okay? All right. Any questions so far? I know this is not as exciting as TIF dollars. But to me, I think it's awesome. Okay. All right. So all of the property owners that currently have driveways along the improved Merriman Road are going to have their driveways replaced. Okay. And at the same width, the same type of configuration as they are today. There'll be concrete drive aprons. It'll look really nice. Okay, it's actually an improvement. This property owner, Equipment Technologies, is in favor of the project and is looking forward to these drives being improved. We have already coordinated with Jones Property, which is Valley Motors. They're also in support of the project. I'm going to skip up to the northeast or northwest at Linnell Properties. This piece here, there's some improvements that are needed there from a drainage standpoint. They experienced quite a bit of flooding in the past, and when we were widening the whole road as part of the scope of the project, we had some of that taken care of. Rather than abandon those plans completely because of the lack of the right-of-way that we needed, it was decided that we were going to go ahead and put in a curb and gutter system in front of their property so they didn't have a flooding problem. So let me just explain. All of this farm ground here is actually flowing towards their business, okay? And in the past, what they had to do is build a little berm around their front door. And they're a metal manufacturing company, so they put up like kind of like gates. And when it rained, they would close the gates. Okay, so this improvement would greatly reduce their risk of having that flooding occur. Okay, it's something that would benefit any business along this edge. Okay. And the drainage would be then taken down south and across the ditch and into the larger ditch. Okay? So it's a quick summary. That's to take care of that drainage. I think that covers most. I'll just add one piece here. Here is where the proposed shell building would be installed, which is not part of the road project. However, what is part of the road project is to extend a drive to the north to service what is built here. And I know Chris King is here to talk about the building itself, but part of the road project is to extend that road in addition to any sewer and water utilities and storm along there. So we do have that as part of ours. So I know you guys are teeming with questions. What can I answer for you today?
I have a question about Bethel Road. Are you extending it? I mean, you're just going to resurface it. Are you? Was your initial plan to extend it up to Lionel and take into the consideration the drainage there, or was that done later?
Yes, that's a great question. So the original plan was to widen it just like we were Merriman Road.
Right.
And take it up past Linnell up to Hansel Parkway.
Okay.
And the drainage would have been associated with that improvement. When it was switched to a mill and overlay situation, the curb and gutter came off everywhere, except we decided, hey, we should maintain that drainage improvement for that area. So. That's a good question.
Any other questions for Brandon?
For Adam, does that, though, that extension there on Bethel, does that get outside of this TIF district? And would the funding
No,
Okay,
so that actually is its own allocation area.
right,
But it's in the economic development area, so that's what we really care about.
okay, so you can go out just beyond that a little bit, okay.
Right, so anywhere in the economic development area, and that goes all north of that.
Right, okay.
Well, Hansel Parkway is part of the TIF district, right?
The other TIF, the big TIF.
The big
The
TIF,
new
yeah.
TIF is just this 100 acres. But we can spend it anywhere in the economic development area, so
Right.
that's,
Right, okay.
encompasses both.
I remember
in
that from
and
your
out.
presentation earlier now.
Yeah.
Say that, so.
I will add that this project went to bid in November of last year as a regular public bid project. We had 4 bidders. Out of that, a company called Kreider and Kreider Incorporated won that project, and they currently have scheduled to start construction next week.
Next week.
Okay. Yeah. So, not all at once. They have a schedule and they're phasing in kind of the initial work over time. But generally speaking, the first piece of construction will be encompassing from 67 to basically here between Equipment Technologies 2 drives. The principal thought on that is that that bridge is the first thing that needs to get put in. And so we're closing a piece of the road and allowing detours around. And so that configuration allows everyone to access their business at all times. And then the rest of it will be phased in basically in turn, so we allow access to as much as possible over time. So scheduled for completion would be this fall in October. I know I'm not on the agenda to talk about the sewer project, so I'm not going to.
Any other questions for Damon on this topic? All right, we do have to, I believe, make a motion to enter or approve this covenant from between NDOT and the Redevelopment Corporation. Is that correct, Adam?
Yeah, so this is what Mark was mentioning, that we get certain development targets, they'll allow us to put a light on. If they pay the light, they will maintain it. I would ask that, and this happens quite a bit, that your motion for approval, subject to my corrections and edits, NDOT drafted this. They called it the City of Mooresville. It's going to change it to the town. Basically just allows me to correct it, send it back, but then we don't have to wait a month until the next meeting because I changed city to town. So the whole, nobody's going to lose their mortgage or anything like that because I'm going to change so much and it's going to fix these Scrivener's errors. But what we'll be looking for is a motion to approve, subject to council's edits.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion that we approve the covenant with the attorney's edits.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much. Alrighty, next on the agenda, Shelbrick Building Presentation, Runnabomb, Chris Keenan. How was traffic?
I will add while he's doing that, so, we did get, we took that traffic signal also in front of the town council. They approved it, or passed it back to us to sign, so, we did get their approval as well.
Well, yeah, it was more of an information share. There was nothing to.
Right, they didn't stop us.
Yeah, they didn't.
They didn't say no.
They didn't.
My name's Chris King with Runabout Construction. This shell building project is one we've actually been working with the town on now for 4 or 5 years. It's a program that we've done. Our company has been involved with developing 9 of these projects across the state. So it started out with a number of projects in Shelbyville where we partnered with the community to build space that someone could come in and envision their project, and then build that out to their exact specifications. So we had 4 projects that we did in Shelbyville that over about 15 years, and all very successful, brought a lot of jobs to the community, a lot of investment. From there, we started branching out and doing in other communities as well. And so we've done projects in Newcastle, up at Grissom. We've done 2 projects over in Franklin, one that sold several years ago, and then one that we've just finished construction, and so it's on the market now. And so we're excited to get this project started here in Mooresville, especially with all of the good movement that's been happening with NICEPAC and just development in the area. So as Mark discussed, we're located in the southeast corner of the Pauley property there at Merriman Road and State Road 67. We're ready to begin construction. As he mentioned, Kreider & Kreider will be starting work on the road project potentially next week. Kreider & Kreider will be our contractor for the site work, with them doing the work on the road and already mobilizing and being out there. It was just advantageous to have them do the site work on the project as well. So we're ready to move forward. What we'll be constructing is a 75,000 square foot shell building. So we'll go in, we'll put the walls and the roof on the building. We do not put a floor in the building, and the reason for that is typically on these projects we work with industrial type end users, and they have varying needs for the type of floors that they want to see. For some, a 6-inch slab may be sufficient. Some may want a 10 or a 12-inch, or they may want to have some special needs as well. I've provided you with a rendering of what the building would look like, and part of it we wanted to play off some of the other materials that are here in the community. So, what it will be is a precast building, so it'll be all hard wall construction, but we're going to have some brick inlays, and with that we'll have some paint to give the effect of brick on that as well. As you come up along 67, this is going to be a very prominent structure that you see. It's going to sit fairly close to the road. It's going to be, I'll be quite honest, it's going to be pretty impressive as tall as it is too. It's going to be about 40 feet tall. So as an entry to the community, I think it's going to give a very, very nice impression of what's going there. This is a marketing brochure that we've been working with Cushman & Wakefield. They're a national broker, industrial broker, extreme network as far as the types of clients they can bring to the table. We've been working with them to develop the marketing for the building. So this is the product that we're working with right now, and as things progress, we're going to start getting this out to site locators, potential users, be working with the state as opportunities come through the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. To show you a few things on here, I think it's good to start with this site plan. It gives you the vision of what we're looking at doing. So as I mentioned, we're doing a 75,000 square foot shell building. Initially, when we come in, we install only really what's necessary to put the building in place. So for pavement wise, all we're doing is a small area of parking in front of the building. So then a user comes in, they need 50 parking spots, they build 50 parking spots. Or if they need 120, they build 120. We try not to overbuild anything or build anything that someone might have to tear up in the future. In the building itself, I mentioned we don't do any type of floor within the building. We do a very minimal electrical service with some lights, a fan to kind of keep some air movement, but then it's all built out per the specifications of who's moving in that building and not us doing anything that is unnecessary. We'll go ahead and put in pavement for truck docks, dock approaches, and again, the dock equipment that'll be getting ready to start construction. We would anticipate that we'll be complete with the building by the end of the year. We're thinking maybe late fall as far as getting everything put together. But so far it seems like everything's moving in the right direction. We're complete with design. We have all our permits to move forward. Crider & Crider will be starting soon, and we're going to be moving pretty hard to get out and market the building very soon. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have about the project.
Dr. Moore?
Just wanted to say, I was really pleased when the RDC selected Runenbaum, because they've been around for a long time. They've done a lot of quality work. They have a good name in school business. They've done some school work. They have a good name in school business. So I think you're working with a good company here.
Well, thank you. Dr. Moore was the superintendent when I was in high school too. That's right.
As we look at that building and you talk about the expansion that's on the north side, my understanding is that NICEPAC has a option to possibly buy the property above it. What is the flexibility? Would it have to be a 75,000 square foot expansion, or can it be smaller?
It can be smaller, yeah.
Okay.
It can certainly be smaller. The way that we will market it, we've had a lot of discussion around this, especially with that option that NICEPAC has. We will market it as expandable up to 150,000 square feet. It's completely feasible to put that on there. Now, if someone needs a lot of parking, or they need things like, additional, trailer court storage or that type of thing, which we've kept on the back side of the building so it's not visible from 67, it could limit how much they can expand, but we certainly could have a 150,000 square foot user with, 150 parking spaces, and, it wouldn't be a problem at all.
Okay.
And I can go back to that drawing too to show you.
There's a wasp right behind you, just so you know.
A wasp?
Yeah, it's down by the,
Yeah.
they're coming out of the ceiling or something.
Yeah, so our
Meeting just got
property line is here. And so this drawing, when we were first looking at it, that was before NICEPAC had the offer. So we had expanded, to look at potentially doing a dual tenant type building. That line can easily move here. Some of the buildings that we've done, we've added on 6, 7 different times for different things. So there's a lot of flexibility with, that's always what we try to build in on it. I do have, this brochure is not going out. We do have a revised site plan that does remove that parking there, so it's not a question.
Because that was what made me question, as I look
Yeah.
at that over the line.
Yeah, no, so we've taken care of that issue. This road around the building is primarily for fire protection. So if there is a fire, but this is a concrete building, so unlikely that we're going to have those issues, but that it can be accessed entirely around the building by a fire truck. So we'll replace that site plan with this site plan, just to make it clear.
Okay.
Any other questions? I will point out that when I first saw the rendering, I was instantly reminded of downtown Mooresville. It was fantastic, and I'm very happy that we have chosen Runenbaum.
Yeah. Well, we're very appreciative to be working with you, and we'll be here quite often. You'll see us a lot. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, next item on the agenda is new business, Mooresville Consolidated School Corporation STEM programming. This is actually something that I have to speak about, so get ready. This has been something that Adam and Chelsea and I have been working on, and we actually get to bring it up tonight. We've been looking for ways to perhaps team up with the school. And I think this is a good, perhaps, project that we need to consider. We don't need to make any kind of motion tonight. We just need to perhaps consider bringing in somebody from the school to speak about it and talk numbers, but I do want to bring it up to your attention, and then if you would like, we can pursue this further. The possible partnership would be providing resources to the school's project Lead the Way programs in elementary and secondary schools, purchase activity kits for elementary students, expand their K-6 programming, possibly funding and train teachers in the project Lead the Way practices, agro-science programs, including middle school courses at the high school, construction of a lab in the ag building up there, the expansion of the greenhouse, partnering with community members to grow the hydroponics and robotic farming education programming, pre-K, provide resources and implement STEM programming in the pre-K programming, including the project Lead the Way. The one thing that I personally think is just the coolest thing, just because I'm a nerd, is the marker space. And what that does is 3D printers, virtual reality goggles. This is something that kids can put goggles on, and at least when I was in school, when we talked about Egypt, we opened a book where we looked at pictures. Now they put on goggles, they can actually go to the pyramids, they can actually walk up the pyramids, they can walk around the pyramids in 3D real time. They can, robotics, we've all seen, these high schools now can actually build robotics. I know the high school does have a robotics team, but expanding on their program, Z-Space, using 3D computer experiences. I mentioned this to my wife who's a nurse. You can actually use these 3D computer experiences, have a virtual reality heart, you can actually expand, look at the blood vessels. So something that of a graduate in the, and I know one of the members of the audience, I am a millennial of all of 2 months. We didn't have back then, so. But construction materials, even for the younger kids, like Legos, so they can build and create some of the traditional construction resources. Any questions on those or anything like that? Is there, I guess, do we really need a motion? Can we just take a consensus?
Just discussion. I mean, there's
Okay.
nothing to approve.
You're not implementing programs at this point. We're discussing a direction you want to talk about us going.
Right. I really want to just bring in a representative from the school to kind of say, this is the areas of which we really want to help or create a partnership with the RDC and give us maybe a dollar figure.
I think this is a good idea, to work with the school and find out what they need, and bringing somebody in from there to give us an idea, I think would be the thing to do, Dustin.
Yeah, I agree. It's something we've always kind of wanted to do something, but we don't want to build a basketball court. We don't want to build a gym. We don't want to build something like that. So this is something that we maybe can pursue. So, well, with that, I will reach out and start that. Adam, on the next item of the agenda, you kind of already gave the legislative update, so.
That's a good idea not to let me speak twice.
Economic development update, again, we kind of already spoke about pretty much everything going on in town. I will mention that High Street or State Road 42, last year, and it's an ongoing project, we are partnering, but on their website, on NDOT's website, is the PowerPoint presentation. It was June of 2019. You can print that off, kind of catch up. Yeah, another fun, riveting presentation that you can look at on your own time. We're almost done, I know. Review of claims. I will pass this down. And once members have had a chance to review the claims, I will take a motion.
Just pass it back.
You need a motion?
He's still.
Is everybody, okay.
There's signature page.
Pardon?
I will accept the motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the claims in the amount of $27,945.82.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. For the good of the order, I again want to thank all the new commission members. I was going to do this at the beginning, but I didn't want to step too far out of the agenda. If you would, just go ahead and state each of your names, because we have, the lovely paper right here that's writing everything down for you. So if you would, just go ahead and state your name, if you could, please.
I'm Dr. Larry Moore. I'm the school board representative.
Dana Heidenreich.
Brian Culp. Ryan Taylor.
Virginia Perry.
And I am Dustin Stanley. Any
Question or statement?
question? Sometimes, most of the time. Anything else for the good of the order? Dr. Moore?
I want to hold myself accountable for something I said earlier. about the past. What I said was accurate, but I keep telling myself, let it go and look forward, and that's what we need to do. That really is what we need to, yet somehow it slips out. Every so often, something slips out. But let me tell you that Adam, who hasn't been here a long time, but he has been nothing but professional and conscientious for us and good for us, I think. Also, I'd like to say kudos to Dustin. Dustin's a carryover from the previous membership of the RDC and has taken on the presidency of the RDC, and what a good thing. Good job tonight. It's a big responsibility. We really appreciate it. And one of the advantages of Dustin is that he's also on the town council, which really helps because that should help eliminate any gaps between what the town council and the RDC are thinking about, and I think that'll be good. And I also like to commend the town council on these new commissioners. And we're glad to have you. It's an important job, and I look forward. I think we've got a team in, Diane too. I think we've got a team in place to move forward and do well. We really do. So, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? The next meeting date, this is actually open for discussion. We can keep it on the current rotation. We can change it. I know a lot of us have children, grandchildren, businesses. I don't have baseball or anything, but I mean, Brian runs all the time, so.
First Thursday's a pretty good time of day.
Yeah, Thursdays are good for me as well.
Okay, and you want to just keep it on the same rotation?
I'm good.
Same time, 6 o'clock? Mind you, just because sometimes we do have to have executive sessions if you get off at 5, or, it would be pushing it sometimes, so. Alrighty.
First Thursday of each month. Traditionally, it's met once a month.
We will keep it as is. I believe the next one will be the 2nd of April. 6 o'clock. With that, I will accept a motion to adjourn as the chimes happen.
So moved.
Second, or is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor to get out of here?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I have a question.
No.
Any one of you have any kind of picture that you would like for us to use for our website? Because we're gonna.
I do.
You do? You
I have one I
one?
can
Do you have
provide.
any?
Probably send you one from the bank.
Okay, from the bank. Okay.
I don't know, I can send you, but
Okay.
if you want to take it, that doesn't bother
I
me.
can take one. You don't.
I don't have one.
Okay, I can take one of you two if you want. I'll just use the two.